Hey guys, it's Albert here. Great week to do a little bit of an overview, and I wanted to give a couple of trades that I'm watching. Also, a little bit of an analysis on what I'm seeing on the SPY. I haven't done one of these in a year or two here on the YouTube, so if you do enjoy them, let me know, and I will try to do them every week here to help out. So yeah, let's get into it really quickly. So as always, I like to start out on bigger time frames. Um, Look at the indices, so SPY, QQQ, kind of see what we can spot in terms of relative strength, relative weakness, and kind of where our eyes are going to be going into the week. And also look at some important levels. So obviously we have SPY here on the weekly time frame. You can see this is clearly going to be an important level here at 418. We were able to break over that on Thursday into the push over, and then on Friday we had a little bit of weakness into the end of the week. But buyers were able to close above that 418 level, and now we are trading above that 418 level, and we stayed above it on Friday. So now you'll be watching to see if we can stay above that early in the week on Monday. As long as we can stay over 418, bias should be to the long side. There are two gaps to fill here through this area. So we have one up until 422 on SPY, and then another one up into 428, 429 level here in this gap right there. You can see. So those will be my two targets if we do stay above 418. If you are thinking that this rally is going to fade and this is just trapping longs here, what I would look for is to clearly reject and break 418. We'd want to see a rejection very similar to a candle like this, right, where we see either a shooting star candle or like a gravestone doji or just a doji in a reversal to kind of give us more confirmation that this is going to be the highs here. And we want to see a lot of volume out of the highs to kind of give us an idea that we're seeing a rejection, because so far we saw pretty good volume breaking through these levels. So as long as we hold above, probably going to see strength and to fill those gaps. But if we are looking to be a short bias, that's going to be the area that I would watch to break under. So 418, I would look to maybe short this back to 415, 414. You can obviously see here on the daily, this is where we broke out into the end of the week, the later part of the week. So clearly there will be some buyers here. So that's what I would target for a downside trade. And in this area, I think that buyers will probably step in if we do get that rejection and price comes down to that area. So I would mark down 415, 414 area here as a level of importance. 418 clearly a level that you want to watch. And then over 420, if we go here on the smaller time frame, we can see that's an area that we'd want to get above to really kind of push higher if this 418 level is going to hold. And kind of push through that through this zone here and into the gap. So two pretty clear levels that you can have marked down on your charts. We're going to have 420. We're going to have 418, which you can see we held into Friday there. More like 417.5 is really the exact tick, but it's more of a zone there. And then 414, under 414, the clear level is 409, 409, 410. So we have four levels that we trade around. Nothing too complicated. Don't over complicate things. Break under 414, or sorry, 418 with volume. Clearly brings 414. Break above 420. Clearly will bring a fill of this gap right here up to 422. So very simple concept there on SPY. SPY has been a little bit weaker. So you do want to note that banks are kind of weaker and into the lows. So if we do get a breakdown, I expect financials and maybe industrials and retail. We have retail earnings this week to kind of lead the downside there. So those are some names I would maybe look for some downside into banks and um, names like that. Tech obviously could still be topping out a little bit because we do have a lot of names that are extended on the tech side, like Google, Amazon. Those have made really big runs and kind of started showing a little bit of weakness into Friday. But those are probably not the names I would look to short if I was looking to take things to the downside. I'd more so look to take weakness to the downside, especially on volume. But we do want to get an idea of how the Qs look. So obviously a lot stronger this week, even though on Friday we did see a little bit of weakness. As I mentioned, a lot of the names started to kind of um, take a little bit of a breather, at least. So we are above the the previous weekly high there. So this would make a new higher high here on the weekly time frame. So as long as we can hold over that area, again, it's not going to be a certain tick. It's going to be more of an area, like you can maybe put it as a range like this. Then we'll probably continue to see upside on the weekly time frame. That'll be around 331 to 334.5 there on on the Qs. You can see we kind of tried holding that on Friday there as the low. So that needs to hold up, but we do have a little bit of an overextension here on QQQ. So I would be a little bit careful when trading the indices and look to see how things maybe develop into the midweek and maybe into the end of the week, and that'll give us a better idea on how things are going to look on the indices. However, that doesn't mean that you can't take advantage of individual setups that are looking a lot better. Obviously, we saw money rotation the past 2 weeks. If you know what that is, it's just money flowing into different names, going back and forth. So we saw a lot of money going into banks, then coming out of banks, banks having weakness, and then money going into the big caps, the ones that had really good earnings, especially names like Google that have the AI kind of hype behind them. Microsoft, obviously, we know Nvidia had a huge move, AMD as well. So money was kind of rotating into those names, and then also rotated a little bit into small caps. So you see names from like last year that you can think of that were super strong, like Palantir, the kind of 2021 sweethearts that made really nice moves. So like AI. UPST, some of the names that had incredible runs and then got beaten all the way back down to the lows are getting a good amount of flows. So what I would do is really look to see early in the week which names are kind of picking up strength. If any of these names are going to be stronger, then I'd watch small caps and growth names, so like ARK, IWM, on the actual index. And I'd keep an eye on that. Last thing you want to do, VIX, obviously here at very important support at 16. You can see last time we came to this area, we held into that low. So obviously you can do technical analysis on VIX. You want to keep it more on like the short term, but you want to map out your levels because it makes it a lot easier to trade SPY and the Qs if you have some alerts on VIX and you know some key levels. So to me, the key levels are 16. If we break under 16 on the VIX, SPY Q is probably going to continue higher. If we can break over 18.3, then we'll probably see a big rejection on SPY, and this will just be a trap for bulls here, and we'll break under 417, come back down to 414, maybe 410, and over that level on VIX would confirm that for me, and it will be a pretty easy trade, so I would be watching that. Now going into the individual names that I'm watching, going to be 3 and 3 here, so 3 long ideas, 3 short ideas to keep things pretty sweet. I like to trade more to the upside, especially when the market is trending to the upside, which it has been for at least the past 2 to 3 months. The weekly, monthly trends are still probably to the downside or just kind of in between right about now, as we're kind of approaching levels um, that are taking us out of the bear market. So we have to see what the weekly and monthly trend like will continue, or if it will continue to the downside, or if we break that trend and push to the upside. But for now, just keeping track of maybe the smaller time frames probably the best thing to do because we are kind of in neutral territory on the big indices. So I would like to have a couple of different ideas throughout the week to see how things develop. But Tesla is definitely one that we want to keep an eye on because it was obviously lagging compared to all the other major big caps. And now it's kind of getting a little bit of strength, right? So on Friday, it was very strong compared to all the other big cap names that were very weak. So if you can look at FANG, for example, all the FANG names, Facebook down 0.5%, Amazon down 1.5%, Netflix, Microsoft, right, all kind of red and struggling a little bit. But Tesla was up almost 2% on the day and showed a lot of strength. So now if we have those same flows going into Monday and the rest of the indices are choppier and consolidate, then Tesla could be a great one to watch for continuation. It already filled its earnings gap here. So now we're just going to watch for continuation. On the weekly time frame, it does look a little bit like a flag, right? So something like that. Might need a little bit more time to obviously develop this out. But I'm more interested here on like the hourly 15-minute time frames. You can see we have a very, very nice setup here on the 15-minute. We broke over this range here into Friday, held into it perfectly. You can see your hammer with volume, and then now you have a pretty nice kind of triangle forming here into the end of the week. So you have a pretty easy trade. If we break over 180.5 with volume, obviously you want to see very nice volume patterns. Then this comes back up to 183. There's a little bit of a gap to fill here as well, maybe 185 for a trade. Um, and that should be a pretty easy one in the beginning of the week if it does play out that way. You can see volume here is very nice on Friday. We've had pretty low volume the last couple of weeks here, and now kind of starting to get a little bit more volume pushing into these levels. So that is a nice look. Shopify is one that I'm watching for a volume anomaly day. So what that means is you can see we had this huge move here on volume. After earnings, and a lot of these earnings trades have been very, very easy to trade. So anything that's gapped up on earnings kind of consolidated a little bit, pulled back, and waited for, let's say, the moving averages to follow up. So you can see here, this is an 8-day moving average, and then kind of consolidated, have all kind of popped back up into the highs and continue to make new highs. So Shopify probably going to do something similar. It doesn't have to, obviously, nothing's certain, but it is something that I am watching for. So a break of this kind of flag-ish look here would set this up for a big move back up to 65. I think the area of confirmation would be over 62. But to me, more importantly, what I'm watching for is more volume here. So you can see on the pullback, we had basically very low volume, normal volume that we've seen um, on this name for the past couple of months. But we're looking for something like this. We're looking for a volume anomaly. We're looking for buyers to step back in with big volume and really push this out of this range. So anything over the volume average here, volume day like this or like this would really confirm that buyers are strong. And that would obviously be a very good trade. Over 62 probably does that. And we'll see buyers step back in. So Shopify, Tesla, really nice looks. MU, very similar. You can see it broke out on high volume right here over the 65 level. If it can pull back into 65, set something up like this, then push out, this is a setup I'm definitely looking to get long on that retest of the 65 level. It has a lot of volume here, and it had a really nice inside day on Friday. Also a little bit of relative strength as well compared to the rest of the names that were weaker on the tech side. And you can see we have a huge base breakout here on volume. So whenever I see something like this, I always want to be involved because someone is obviously buying this up to get it out of range. And you have confirmation with this big volume cluster here on the right side of the base, right? So you have high volume off of the lows every single time, right? Low, low here, high volume, low here, high volume, lows, lows, high volume. And the breakout has high volume as well. So this tells us that this base is probably going to follow through. So either a test of 65 for an entry, or if it can break over the highs at 68.5 for a continuation trade, would be very nice. Would like to see volume continue to stay relatively high. Then the short trades, I think Morgan Stanley is a very nice short candidate. A lot of the banks are. So if you want to take a look at the bank's charts and see if anything stands out to you. I like this because, again, the volume. So basically, every single time we have a move to the upside, you can see it's on pretty low volume. And then the next time we kind of push back down to the lows, we have super high volume. So that's telling me that sellers are still active and strong here. And we'll probably have a very big move to the downside if we break under this 81.5 level. You can see we obviously had support here a couple times. Now we're kind of looking like we want to break down here. Very high volume there on Friday, which maybe confirms that. And if SPY rejects 418, breaks under 418, this would be a nice play to the downside there. Now ENPH, very similar to what I was saying with MU and Shopify after the earnings trades. Whenever you have earnings and then you have a move in kind of the direction of earnings and you're not able to reclaim the earnings gap, so something like Tesla here, you have a good chance to follow through and move in the way that the earnings initially gapped, right? So Shopify, we're looking for a price to it gapped up on the earnings, pulled back, then we're looking for continuation. Same thing with names that gap to the downside, right? These are clearly very weak names, and someone obviously took a very big position here to the downside to create this move. And we can confirm that with obviously the volume there on the earnings, right? So now what we're looking for is another volume anomaly, but to the downside. So we have a little bit of a bear flag here, looking for this to break down and maybe test the lows at 150 or break down and maybe push to 129. Regardless, this looks like a very good downside trade if market is going to be weaker. And we will see follow through. So I will be continuing to watch this one. Under 159 would be confirmation. Just want to see more volume there, right? We've had pretty low volume the past couple of weeks. So this week, if we get higher volume, that would be a trade I would take. Starbucks, same idea as Enph. Volume gap down here on earnings. Now we have a clear bear flag setting up and on very low volume, right? So if we break down from the bear flag on high volume, that is the key. That'll indicate to us that there's a good chance that this is going to continue and push downside to 97. So 3 short setups, three long setups. Just want to keep the video quick. Hopefully this helped out and you can pay attention to some of these names and apply some of the analysis that I use to maybe some other names that you're watching as well. And yeah, if you like these kind of watch lists into the week, let me know and I'll post these every week here on the YouTube. Thank you guys for tuning in and hopefully everyone has a great trading week.